it today Memorial Day? Yeah. So happy Memorial Day. Here is last week's Evie.
Ginger.
And here is what we're making today.
It's beautiful.
Gengar.
It's going to be perfect.
Gengar.
Oh, wait. Did you make it on?
Barely.
Okay. Well, we'll see what I do with that. All right. So what we tend to do as tradition now is we open up some Pokemon cards. Well, stay off camera. So today we actually traded some old packs that I got when he was a baby for this whole thing. So now he gets to have some new stuff. And this is what we're opening today. So let's go ahead and see if I can do this without breaking everything. So it's just kind of our way of starting the day off, starting the video off. I'm going to pull the whole thing out. I've even got a binder. Oops. Here, hop off of that for just a moment. Stand next to me. Wait, buddy. Hold on. So we got our binder. And in this binder is even a giant page. Barely, but that should be enough.
I hold you.
Hold on a second, baby. So let's see.
It's open.
Yep. Hold on. You're going to pick one pack that we're going to open today. Well, there's a big card, huh? Here, let me see it. Put it into our little big binder here. Wait. Leave those there for just a moment, okay? So, here's this. This is the binder for him.
Mine. Where's huge?
His mommy.
Where's my huge, Bubba?
And my favorites.
Where's my huge?
Well, that is the huge one. It's right.
And my pet and my book.
Well, I'll switch it out of this book into your book later. But for now, see, it's right there.
Where's my...
I will put it in yours in a little bit. But I wanted to do this all at one time. All right, so we've got 8 packs here. Pick one of these 8 packs.
Yeah.
That's the one you want? Are you sure?
I love my Pokemon.
Yeah.
I pick one fire Pokemon.
Yeah, fire Pokemon.
Yeah, my favorite.
All right. I think your favorite is grass Pokemon for the most part.
I love my Pokemon.
Yeah, I know you say that right now. Hey, Cat B. Cat B is one of the people who've been watching me for a while, and I just wanted to say hi. And thank you for coming in. I know I'm early, but it's a holiday, so we're trying to do things a little bit differently. Okay, so let's see.
Open it.
There we go.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
All right, what'd you get, buddy?
Look.
Oh, Houndour. Actually, Houndour is one of my favorites.
Look.
Magikarp. That's a cute Magikarp. I think we're going to wind up putting this on the side because I think that's going to be one of those ones that you should keep. Ooh, what is that? The Arvin Toe Screw.
You love people ones. You love.
Yeah,
cool.
Team Rocket Golbat.
Look.
Yeah, back up just a little bit. Team Rocket.
I ate people ones.
Yeah, the people ones are so boring.
Boring.
Blipbug. We got 2 of these. So mommy's going to take one of these right now. Take that one right there. Oh, give that one to mommy. Nope, this one.
This one?
A fish. Ooh, Team Rocket Wobbuffet.
That's cool.
Important thing.
Yep, that's our big hit. That's supposed to be the big hit. That's in the rare spot.
That's cool.
Yeah. Does mommy want to keep that one?
That's big.
Mommy want to keep any of these?
I'm good.
Who is?
That's cool.
The Houndour? Yeah, that's one of my favorites too.
Yeah, we have other ones of that too.
Yeah?
Yep.
This is Team Rocket's Houndour though.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right.
And
I can go
Bulbasaur.
in this.
And Bulbasaur.
Wobbuffet? You want the Wobbuffet saved too?
Absolutely, huh?
Yeah.
Where's
And
T-Rex?
this is for mommy to scan.
Thank you.
That's going to go in my pile.
That's T-Rocket.
Is it Team Rocket?
Uh-huh.
It is Team Rocket. There's a lot of Team Rockets, huh?
I got more.
All right, buddy. Go ahead and take your Pokemon.
I can't.
There you go. You can take this one too. This one's Team Rocket, see? Team Rocket. All right, go on, buddy.
Where's my big Pokemon?
I told you we'll deal with that later, okay?
Look.
Yeah. No, leave all those there. Can mommy put those someplace safe for the time being?
Where's my big
And we are going to be making a remake of Gengar. My last attempt at making Gengar. Can you bring me that Mimikyu Gengar when you get a chance? My last attempt at making a Gengar did not turn out very well. There's a whole lot of problems that came out of it. And in the end, I turned it into a Mimikyu Gengar. So what I did was make some changes that will hopefully help, hopefully fix that problem. And today we are going to try that again. I've made the ears, I've made everything all separate so that hopefully we are good to go. With luck, I have done some of this correctly. There's a slight chance I made these ears backwards, which I did last time too. But it's going to be taking a minute for me to kind of get everything situated here. And it looks like I did. I think I made them backwards. So I'll just recut these. But thank you so very much, Vance. This is what I made last time I tried to make a gengar. It came up just... This is what I made, and was so off that I really thought it made a perfect Mimikyu Gengar. And since then, that's been one of the toys that he's played with the most. Looks like I might have to re-sew part of it because I didn't sew it very well at the beginning. But that's the plan. I've got a couple things I'm going to have to do real quick. I've got to go get a little bit of material because what I did was when I cut my ears, I actually cut them a little bit backwards, which is an annoyance. Vance, no, take this somewhere else, please. You can do it later, or you can do it with Mom. Take it to Mommy. I'm going to go get some purple material. I'll be right back. Okay, so I tried to get everything cut and ready to go before I log on, but as soon as I start setting this up, I realized that I'd cut both of these backwards, which is a problem because it's supposed to be mirrored. And one of the things is that I do not make any of these patterns beforehand. Well, I don't make any of the plushes beforehand. So these are all like first-time runs. So there's a lot of mistakes that wind up happening, in addition to the fact that I don't even know how they're going to turn out. This is all guesswork based on my experiences. And the point is to show how much fun it can be to do these things, while at the same time showing how I kind of adjust and learn and fix different things. So I've got my whole pattern here. Just got to get those two ears out so that I can remake them. When I made this the first time, I actually did make the legs for it. But that head was so far off from what I had intended that I couldn't do it. I mean, technically I could. I didn't want to, especially once I got the idea of making it into a Gengar or a Mimikyu. So, you go ahead and find my material. So, the material, this is Minky. It's a very soft and furry material, and it is incredibly soft. Even when you look at it, I always tell people when I was at craft shows that they should touch the plushes that I make, because as soft as it looks, it's actually even softer, especially when you go with the grain, with the fuzz. And that's one of the things I like to make sure I pay attention to, because depending on what part it is, for example, the face, you pet down. But I picture the back of the ears that you're going to pet up. So I want to make sure that the fuzz goes that direction. And since I have to recut it, I'm just going to make sure I make some extra steps to try and do my best to do it right. And let's see, I've got here's the down. So I want to make sure I do this. And then just to kind of double check myself, I'm going to look at the ones that I cut wrong. Baby, we'll deal with that in a little bit, okay? I promise. And it looks like, yep. So this is the down, and all I did was just cut it backwards. And silly mistakes like that happen all the time, especially when you're using a new pattern. And since I design all these myself, it is so easy for me to kind of get lost doing like 3 different things at a time. My son's over here yelling at me because he wants to put his big Pokemon card in his book. And I know, baby. You're an animal? What kind of animal are you? You don't even know, do you? All right, so let me see here. And again, I'm going to double check to make sure. I had both ears kind of tilted the same direction. So I have to make sure that I get them done the same way. I'm also double checking with the one that I know that I did wrong, just to be sure. I've already made enough mistakes, wasted enough material that I figure it's better to do my best to double check as I go. And the house smells like brownies because Mandy made some brownies today. Do you guys want to make anything special for your holidays? Yesterday we made bratwurst, and today I made these burgers. But I make them, I didn't grill. the grill that we have has been left in such disarray that even though I sprayed it out and cleaned it up as much as I could, that I didn't really feel like using it today. But I cooked it in a cast iron skillet, and it was delicious. I don't know if any of you have ever used cast iron for anything, but I have found a great joy in cooking in a cast iron skillet. And that's not even counting all the fears that have come from cooking in nonstick and all that stuff. So if anybody else cooked anything, let me know. I actually really considered the idea of taking advantage of today's holiday being such a grill day that I almost decided to make a themed Pokemon. So what I thought about doing was making like a ghastly burger plush, or what was the other one I had thought about? It was on Gen 2. I thought about making, it was a ghastly burger, an electrode burger, or, a Chin Chow burger plush, which all those lend themselves really well to the idea of making a plush burger out of them. But my son was getting upset that I haven't already made his Gengar. So I thought it might be safer for everybody if I just made that today. So when I make these, I usually have a picture that I would show you. Downside is I forgot to charge my backup phone. So I'm trying to turn it on right now. And if I'm lucky, it'll let me turn it on so I can show you a picture of what I'm going to be making. But I never know what's going to happen. It's an older phone. And I've got all these different steps I'm going to be taking for this. For example, I want to make a mouth in here. And I'm going to use big eyes. I've got these giant eyes that I've been using for certain plushes. Let me show you the size. So this will make it really cute. It's the same size eye that I put on the Mimikyu version instead of doing the swirly eye. But that's because my original intent was to make an actual Gengar. So when it turned into a Mimikyu version, that's okay. I wasn't too worried about not having the swirly eyes. Here is my other phone, my backup phone. I'm going to show you what we're aiming for today. I won't be able to leave it up like I normally do. Normally, I just leave this running, and then we can just kind of look back and forth at it to kind of compare. But this is today's goal. I'll add the tooth and probably a couple of the arms. I already made the legs the last time I made this. But I figure just a quick show of what the idea is might be worth having on every now and then. So I'm going to charge that phone while we are playing together. Also, I have a question for you guys. Now, I do my best to respond as often as I can. I check messages as fast as I can while I am streaming. But if I miss something you say, please let me know. Feel free to send it over and over again. I am happy to come back to it whenever I can. It's just that it's really hard to kind of see the screen while I'm working. So here's my question. I am planning on doing a giveaway. I say that because I have actually done giveaways before when I reached a certain number of followers, and I really wanted to do one when I hit 3,000 or 4,000 followers, but I didn't have time. And then suddenly I'm at 5,000 followers. So what I want to do is a giveaway. Now, most of what I make that people pay attention to, I think my phone is kind of beeping at me. What the heck is happening here? Let me check this phone, make sure that it's not dying or something like that. I think it's okay. I think what's happening is it's bouncing off and on the charge. Okay, so what I make a lot of, and what I gave away last time was a plush mouse. But I've been making bunnies, and I also make rats and all this other stuff. And here's what I've been thinking. I've got a witch one here and a fairy one here. See, it's got the wings on it. It's all cutesy. It's got the whiskers. Then the witch has a cloak with the collar piece and a witch hat. What I was kind of thinking about doing is making a mouse. And here is the mouse that I made with the teal and the purple. And I think this color combination is very cool. So it would look roughly like that. And this is what I'm thinking about doing as the giveaway. But the question I have is I got these magnets that I can put inside of it. And those magnets, let me go ahead and go grab them real quick. These magnets are actually pretty strong. And what I could do is use them for accessories. me show you how well they work. Let me go ahead and pull a couple off real quick. I just got to get 2. They're actually really strong. So it works really well. And I'm going to find some stronger ones too. What it is I found a site online that I could order from. And it's the same site that some people had suggested to me to try. So I'm pretty sure that it's going to work out. Got to put them in there so they don't float away on me. But it is strong enough that I could actually put one inside. Oops, let me separate this out. One inside the body. Then the other one inside the head. And even though this minky material is pretty thick, I just got to find it now. Where did it go? Is it still? Yeah, there it is. Even though this minky material is pretty thick, it'll still hold together. So my question is, should I make accessories like changeable hats? Give it a witch hat and a princess hat and let's see what else, like a clown hat. Or should I put it in the hands so that someone could order some accessories that holds it? Or they can order a partner for them to hold hands. I guess basically what I'm saying is that based on the experience that I've had, do I make it variable or should I just make it real simple? Since it is just a giveaway, I know that means that people might not exactly want exactly what I make. But as an addition, I thought it would be a good place to start. Does anybody have any opinions on preferences on something like that? I don't even know if that's anything that anybody would even think about doing. And while we're doing that, I'm actually just sewing on parts of my plush together. What I like to do is, because I'm working with small pieces and this fuzz is so thick, I actually like to leave the previously sewn up part on so that I can use the thread that's attached as kind of a handle to pull and keep going. It's something that I say pretty much every time I'm on live, but part of my goal is to teach people and show little tricks that I've learned. Since I had to learn all this on my own, I thought it'd be kind of neat to do something goofy, something fun to show how much fun you can have, but also to kind of teach little lessons that you might not even think about. And I know that a lot of people are really good at figuring out problems, but sometimes it's just so helpful to start off with a few solutions before you even know that there is a problem. I've had a lot of teachers that used to tell me stuff like, if I teach you how to do it, if I tell you how to do it, how are you supposed to learn? And I'm like, honestly, I'm still going to learn, but I'll get there faster if you just kind of help me. So you see, I left the thread on right here. It's kind of hard to see because of how far we are, but you can see the thread. And I'll use this as the handle to pull the next one through. But once again, I'm planning on doing a giveaway. I'm going to set it up, but I want to know what your opinion is. Should I have this mouse with a magnet in its hand, or should I put the magnet on its head so you can change the hats out? There's a few other options along those kinds of lines. So if there's something that you guys think would be a good option, let me know. Talk to me. Send me some messages, and we'll see what kind of plan I can come up with. For the time being, my Gengar is actually meant to be a pretty simple plush. My original plan was to make it so easy that I could just put it together real quick. And then even with the mistakes that I made last time, it did turn out to be pretty easy, just that I made it wrong. So my hope is that I have still got it simple, but now have it simple and right. Making these goofy versions of these plushes has been a lot of fun. My son has really enjoyed getting these. He doesn't like me calling them goofy. I call them goofy because I don't want it to be too much of a trademark situation. I know exactly what could happen. I know how pissed off someone could be about it. But it's still something fun that I can take not too seriously and then help people learn how to make their own versions of. And just to show you once again, this is how my Eevee turned out. Let me go ahead and back this off just a little bit. Someone special requested this. They wanted it to look, they had this drawing that they did where that's the kind of face that they had. It had the bangs and everything. And they said they wanted it to look like crumpled paper mixed with a chihuahua. So I gave it like the chihuahua legs, It's got the fat body, and then I made this to look like crumpled paper instead of looking nice and fluffy. And I think that it made it really, really fun to look at. So I'm going to keep that method when I make the rest of the evolutions. Kind of try and keep that general feel so that it matches. And with all the other things that I'm doing, I'm trying to, I guess I'm trying to figure out a style. For the most part, what winds up happening is I kind of do the drawings, the digital drawings that I showed you. And I can show you again for anyone that's interested. And then I just kind of roll with that. I don't even think too much beyond it. But I don't think that I've got a specific style. There's something I do with the legs that's pretty common. I make them very simple, kind of droopy-ish. And then I think aside from that, it's the fact that I use the safety eyes instead of doing any kind of embroidery or applique for the eyes. So I don't know if you were to put mine next to somebody else's, if you could distinguish mine or not, just based on style. But I'm also trying to avoid them looking like dittos. I don't want them to look like a ditto plush. I love ditto. I thought it'd be funny to make ditto plushes. But the truth of the matter is I don't really want that exact theme. And then for Wednesdays, I do Weird Wednesday. And over the last several weeks, I've been working on this cute Cthulhu. Basically a cute version of a Cthulhu. I can't say for sure that it's particularly cute because what's happened is I started with some sketches, some drawings, some ideas. But we've done a lot of work with letting the viewers help me figure out details. So it's kind of shifted between cute and scary, and it's got some really cool details. But one of the things I have planned for next time is I'm going to actually do a horror version of a Pokemon. So imagine like a Abomination. So maybe an evolution that turns into something scary would be a lot of fun to make. Or maybe I'll just do a mutated version of another one that I haven't made yet. Give it some extra eyes or mouth or something like that just to kind of play with it. This is going to be the tongue, which I'm actually going to sew onto the front. I had originally thought maybe what I'll do is cut a hole for the mouth and then sew it in. But I learned early on that when you do something like that, you have to plan for the loss. Because essentially what happens is when you sew it together, you get this pinch. And you can see that what happens when it's pinched, you have a crease that appears. And the only way to fix that is, for example, I could have cut a slit right here and then added a little bit more so that what winds up happening is that there's a hole that I would have to sew across and down. And all those change the shape of things. Like, for example, I've got this wedge. And the wedge, when you have a flat piece, it tries to stay flat as it can. But when you add a wedge, it actually brings a curve to the body of it, which does fully change the shape. And that makes it a lot better. Giving your plushes extra shape by adding things like this. Let me show you what I did here. So on the butt here, let me see if I can find it real quick. Yep, there it is. I've got 2 of those wedges right here, and that just added more shape. And it's let me know that if I do that just right, I can actually add cheeks and a crease right in the middle, which would make for some very cute plushes, because then I can give them booties. And that'll be a lot of fun to do, because then I could just add butts to stuff. And it would be the best method I have seen for adding booties, because every other thing I've seen has been involved adding a piece of string or thread that you then pull tight. And I never liked that because it just feels like it's just going to come undone or snap at any point in time. And the truth is, everything I put together, I like to make sure that it's put together strong, even though I don't use like a zigzag stitch. All right, I am sewing that wedge up real quick. But what I was saying is I like to make sure that everything strong, and just having a loose piece of thread to pull tight doesn't seem very secure to me. So I've been looking for a new way to make booties, and that may have helped me figure that out. On my Gengar here, I do plan to do as much as I can in the simple ways. And what that means is on his back, instead of sewing each one of these little pieces on for the hair, I'm actually going to sew these down the spine. Yes, I know that's not how he would look. But again, this is a goofy version. And this spine is a longer wedge. So I'll be able to start pretty high up on the back and then have like 3 of them as it goes down. And I don't think he's got a tail. I can never remember. My son said he doesn't have a tail, so I just trusted him. But he's only 4. What does he know? But basically, I think that if I do this one right, I'll get that oval shape that I want. I will put the spikes running down his back. And I think that that'll look like the hair that I want it to look like. I just have to kind of get it just in there just right. So I'm basically going to sew this entire wedge in. And because I also want to make sure that the hair, the spikes, whatever you want to call them, stay in place, I am pinning them in place, whereas I haven't been pinning things so far otherwise. And since it is curved, I want to have them facing downwards. I want to get it as close to the edges as I can. So has anybody been doing anything special for the holiday today? Is anybody actually at the family picnic right now? My dad and my stepmom, my mama, are retired military. My hope is that by doing this early, I can call them before they go to bed or before they go out, because they may just be going out. They are not homebodies, but they're also both recovering because my stepmom got hurt in the line of duty and now has a broken titanium rod in her spine. And my dad has been an active person his whole life, so he's working on finding ways to stay active. So they may be home, they may be out. But how about you guys? Anybody have any family members that you're going to go see, that you did go see? I guess depending on where you're at, it's like 5:30 where I'm at. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Normally I start at the bottom of these wedges to sew up to the top, but I'm just going to have to come back and sew the top if it's not how I want it to be. And I will actually be able to show you roughly what I mean by how I want it to be. Because what happens is when you sew these wedges, when you get to that top section where the V crests, I guess the cleavage of it, I'm not sure what the word of it would be. If you sew it straight off in accordance to the shape that you've got it cut, it actually creates this pleat, this corner that doesn't look quite smooth. So what I tend to do is I'll sew from the bottom and go that way so that I can round it all the way out, so that instead of taking the shape of the cut, it actually takes the shape of the stitch. Which is one of those things I just kind of learned as I started doing things, and little details like that just kind of, oh, that makes it a little easier. I'll go ahead and pull out my pins so I don't stab myself. I'm not a fan of getting poked by my pins, but it is one of those things that seems to happen a lot, especially when I am sewing something I don't know how it works. Again, this is a first-time build. I have not made this before. I'm kind of figuring it out as I go. I took some guesses when I made the pattern. But here's what I was talking about. If I sew that incorrectly, right here it turns into a corner. But since I managed to get the rounded out, this is just going to look like a round belly. And that's actually where I'm going to put the mouth anyways. But still, it rounded out pretty nicely. You can see how it's taken that shape because of the wedge that I put in there. And that really helps with rounding out a lot of plushes. You can get the heads, the bodies, the bellies. I do this a lot for bellies. This helps me get just enough of a rounding so that when I put the stuffing in there, it puffs out. And when you only have a flat piece, when you only have something like this, it tries to do its best to stay flat. And so, yes, it'll round, it'll puff out a little bit, but this gives it a whole lot of shape and makes a real big difference. And it's one of those things that you pick up on and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I think that I have to figure out how I'm going to do these ears. My intention was give it just a little bit extra so that when I sew across, I don't have to worry about it showing up. I think that that'll actually work, but before I go too far, I'm going to go ahead and put my mouth on, and I'm just actually going to embroider the mouth. For embroidery, I have this material that I use. It's kind of a paper. It's, by all accounts, it's like a cross between paper and fabric. And I'm not sure what the word for it actually is. And the reason I don't know is because I threw away the box and didn't dedicate it to memory while I was teaching myself how to do this stuff. I know that words are important, and I know knowing the technical details of what you're doing is important. But I also learned pretty early on, because I do a lot of different things that I had to teach myself, that sometimes the words just don't matter. If it is important to you, definitely look it up. It's like parchment paper, but I'm not sure what the technical term for it would be. And it's not the exact same as what you would use if you were trying to give some shape to your whatever you're sewing. And I can't even remember what that word, interface, I think is what that's called. But I'm not even 100% sure about that. But interface is what I believe it's called whenever you try like the brim of a hat. Well, in this case, it's actually really thin, and the entire intention is to help give your material or something to grip on so your machine will catch it. Now, here's another thing. Embroidery on this material, look at how fluffy this is. There is so much fuzz. You can see, let me get that out of the way. You can see how much, what is that? Stabilizer. Thank you, stabilizer, John. John was here the day that I was starting to sew this, and I think it was this one, and I accidentally closed it up without intending to, which is funny because he like cursed me. He said, "Don't forget to leave the opening," just as I finished the opening. But the stabilizer helps you with material like this. This will get caught up in the boot and the feed dogs and all of this other different stuff. But if you have that stabilizer on the back, it allows it to move through the machine a little bit easier, which is particularly important because with that fuzz, I already have the problem that embroidery might catch that fuzz. So even if I've got layers of thread down, sometimes that fuzz sticks up between it. Well, that helps me move it and get a little bit more control over my movement. So let's see what kind of look I can get here. I got pretty tight. I also have to make sure that it doesn't stick on me, because what happens, it's still stuck. If I leave it like that, I'm just going to have a big knot. So it's going to take me just a few moments. I'm trying to get a smirking smile. And I'm not even sure how far I should go, so I'm just kind of going really close to where my pin is. And let's see. I think that actually hit it pretty well. All but the one spot where it seems to have caught up on it. So what I'm actually going to do, since I want that smile to be a little bit wide, I'm going to go ahead and sew another line right next to it to thicken it out. I can hear it trying to catch on me. And what I'm really trying to do is catch all the fuzz so that it doesn't show up between stitches. Let me get this out of my way. It might not be much thicker because I may have gone pretty much right over my previous stitch. But I won't know for another couple moments. All right, now let me go ahead and back stitch just a little bit. Get my pin out of the way again. Let's see, what do I have? I've got my tongue sewn. I've got my spikes already sewn in. My ears sewn on. So, oops, looks like I left my fluff. Oh, there it is. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fill this tongue up so that I can kind of get, remember I told you I like to leave it, the previous one on here, so that way I can use my tongue as my handle, because what I'm going to do is shape the tongue just a little bit. I'll put a little bit of fluff inside here, and then I'm going to stitch the shape of the tongue, that little loop inside, so it flattens the tongue out, gives it a little bit of shape. That way I can hand stitch that onto the face when I'm done with that. Okay. Again, using the previous piece as a handle will make it a little bit easier on me. This is going to be very thick. I've already got 2 layers of fabric plus all this fluff, and it's still that super fluffy material. So what tends to happen is it tries not to move, and I've got to give it just that extra pressure anyways. Once I get enough tongue through, I will be able to use the actual material. Now, depending on what you're doing, you might want to pay attention to what kind of, or what color the thread is. Since I'm actually just doing what would look like black lines anyways, I'm not too worried about using the same color. But if you are trying to make something that hides that, it's better off to go with the same color as the material you're using. I'm going to show you here in a minute. You don't have to worry too much because it's even with it being black on red, it's not going to show up very much, but there's always those chances depending on what you're doing. And it's just, there are circumstances where it is just better to use the same color. I could have easily used a red on this to get it to completely hide, but I think the black will look good anyways. And then here's our mouth. You can see right here, little spots where the fuzz came through. And that's caused by a combination of things. 1, my stitch. 2, the way that I move, which is not perfected. I am not amazing at embroidery, even though this is some of the better embroidery that I've had. I've gotten lucky. The last time that I made when I did this mouth, it came through really well, but it doesn't always work like that for me. I haven't got the experience. I don't do it very often. So what winds up happening is I'm still always adjusting just a little bit more than what it would be if I did this every day. Additionally, I'm not using the right type of boot. There is a boot you can get that's got a big hole in it so that you can really see what you're sewing on. Or you can use clear boots, and that'll do the same thing. It helps you out a lot. So if you do decide that you're going to do a lot of embroidery and you just kind of want to start practicing on it, I really do suggest that you get the circle one. And I believe it is literally called an embroidery boot. And what'll happen is you'll learn the easy way as opposed to what I have done, which is learn the hard way and just keep going with it. But that's kind of my brand, I suppose, when it comes down to it. Okay, so I think that if I leave the ears a little bit droopy, it'll look better. So I'm not even going to fill these. What I am going to do is fold up this part right here. So what happens is I'm going to sew across from one side of the ear to the other. And it'll just keep me from having to worry about this being on the inside. If I laid it down, when I sew across, when I right side it out, I'll have that sticking out. This is just part of the non-planned plan. Essentially, like I said before, this is not something that I have built several times compared to something like the mice and the bunnies. I know pretty much how to fold everything, put everything down, where I want all the material to go, and I know how it works. But with these are always first-time builds, with the exception of this being like an adapted second-time build, where essentially I'm just kind of running with what I've done just to see how it works and see if I get lucky, if I've done it right. Now, one thing I will do that I don't always do is I am going to pin this in place. My hope is that I got enough of an oval shape that today it'll actually look right. But because there's so much space and I don't know for sure if these two pieces perfectly line up around the outside, I'm going to do my best to line it up by starting at about the center here. This is where the center of the spine goes. And this is roughly where the top of the head is going to be. So this will, if I set this up just right, I can pin it in place and then run all the way around, and I will see where the gaps come in and if I need to worry about fixing anything. This time, I am going to do my very best not to forget to leave an opening. I imagine John is sitting there kind of laughing, making fun of me, probably was about to say something about it. And my intention is I'm going to leave an opening on the bottom. I like leaving the opening where I have to close the stitch and right side it out in an innocuous place. And a lot of times I would actually just do that in the on the back. But because of the way that I've got this built, I can't do that. Oh, look at that. I almost put this together backwards. See, I've got the spikes going down, but I've got the ears at the top here. That would have been rather aggravating. Again, it's one of those things that I wouldn't worry too much about after I've made several of these. But I have to really pay attention to all these little details because I never know which ones are going to be the ones that I mess up until I put it together. It looks like I might need to, I'm going to stitch this down just a little bit further, which kind of sucks because it means that I won't be able to use my handle. But that's just going to have to be the way it is. It's a big enough piece where I'm honestly not worried. It's just something I prefer to do out of habit now. So when I can't, I either adjust or suffer. I could always just take 2 pieces of material and sew it on here to salvage that handle option. But it's not so important here that I'm that worried about it. And the reason I did that is because I needed to get this even with the head so that when I fold it up, there's not a little gap. And if there is a little gap, the cool thing is I could always hand stitch closed little gaps. So none of what I've done here is so drastically vital that it destroys anything and stops it from being right. It's just my way of kind of trying to see if I can make this so that I don't have to worry about all these little details if I decide to make more of these. And that's one of the things too. Like for example, my Charizard. I made that Charizard. People really liked it. And I wound up making like 6 of them. And it's definitely fun to do. It's really cool to know that I've made something that people really like that. So I also like to keep these patterns separated so that I know what does and doesn't work and make some changes, all that kind of stuff. Another thing is I intend to start putting these patterns up somewhere. I haven't digitized any of them yet, but that's because it's still really new making instructions. The only thing I've made instructions for was a mouse with the option to make bunnies out of it. And this is so small, and I just got so used to how I put it together that it was just hard to write down. I wasn't even sure what details were too much, what would be helpful. So if I mind up making some of these plushes and you really want to pattern for them, let me know, and I will do my very best. I'm falling behind as far as making the Charizard pattern, but I will be getting back on track very soon, trying to get a lot of that up in different places. I've been seeing a lot about the Mayhem Marketplace. I'm kind of curious as to what to do there. So if you have any thoughts, any ideas, and requests, no instructions is too much for me. So that's kind of the thing somebody else said. I was like, all right, I don't want to make 4 pages of instructions. I want to try and see if I can cram it into one spot. And they're like, look, honestly, put too much. If they know how to do a thing, they can skip over it. But if they don't, the more information is good. So I'm probably going to wind up doing the same thing, Cat B, is all kinds of extra instructions. What direction to have the fur, what about the bias, where to start sewing, where to finish, all that stuff. Especially since on these plushes like the goofy Pokemon, it's meant to be for starters, for people to be pretty easy. But live and learn, figure things out, all that stuff. So the easier I can make it, the better off I'll be. Okay. I, once again, am making, let me go ahead and show you what I am doing. This guy is pretty much done. I've got this stitch, and I've got hand stitches I have to do. Come on, you can do it. Open, open. Is this? I am making a goofy ghost Pokemon. My hope is that this time will be a little bit better than the first. And I will show you real quick what happened with my first one. My first one turned into a Mimikyu, which I think is really cute. I really enjoy it. This is how I picture Mimikyu making new costumes. I've seen some beautiful and fantastic Mimikyus made in different forms, and they always look so good. And I'm like, from what I saw of Mimikyu wouldn't be able to make a good one. It'd be very cobbled together, guesswork, trying its best, which in itself is super cute. But when you make it look too perfected, I'm like, no, that doesn't feel right to me. As cute as that might be, it doesn't feel right. All right, so we've got one long stitch to run through here. This is the entire body. I've got this set up so that very few parts need to be hand stitched and attached. And I do that on purpose as part of the attempt to make it easy thing. But I have a feeling that I'm going to have to go back over the ears because they're so close to the edge. And then a few other little things that might wind up happening. Oh no! I need to stop right here. I just realized that these ears need to be pushed inside out. See, right now what will happen is when I right side it out, that's sewn. And all I'm going to do is have a no ear head. So I've got to fix that. I'm glad I realized it when I did, as opposed to having to unstitch both of these. See, that's one of the things that always happens. Since all of these plushes are made for the first time, or I guess technically for the second time in this case, I don't know exactly how they're going to fit together. There's a whole lot of freehand, improvisation, something like that, that happens while I'm doing this. And basically, I'll realize things halfway through or just after I've made the mistake. In this case, it was kind of a combination of both of those, because I realized as I was sewing this that the ear is not going to come outside with it. So all I'm doing is unstitching. I've got just a wide enough stitch that because the thread is black and it's on this dark purple, I can actually see it just well enough to seam rip individually, which is helpful because this material is so soft that if I try to rip it this way, I tend to actually tear the material when I do that. So let me go ahead and kind of pull out a few stitches. You can always switch it to the other side and cut out some more here. And essentially all I'm going to do is try and right side the ears so that they will actually be inside when I sew this part. And if I'm right, that should fix my problem here. Just a couple more stitches. You can see how the thread starts coming out pretty easily. Since I didn't backstitch any of this, this was just a straight stitch as I came across this point. I don't have to worry as much about there being extra tight stitches on here or extra things that I have to cut. I just have to get these loose. And then I could always just pull it apart from here. There we go. All right, let's see if I am right. Now, I'm just going to trim up the top of the ear because it's so tight right there, such a sharp edge. I have to trim up really close to it so that when I right side it out, this material doesn't actually fill that space. Now, I'm not worried about getting stuffing into the ears. I don't mind if the ears actually wind up being droopy, but I do want to make sure that it actually has the ears. So let's go ahead and right side those out real quick. And then I will tuck that in, and that should fix my problem. All I have to do is make sure that the fold that I have is up high enough to line up with the material that I'm going to be stitching from the other side. And that should be fine. And even if it's not, what will wind up happening is that'll stay there, and then I'll sew across to the other side. And in fact, that might actually be the better option. Just sew the spare part that I've got and make sure I get it really close to the edges. Let me go ahead and do that to the other side real quick. Once again, I'm going to cut off the corner because this stuff I've learned from doing these really tiny paws. These really tiny paws, that all that extra material, all the, I forget what the word for it is. What's the word when you have the extra on the edge? See, that's the thing. I don't remember all those words because I don't use them very often. The allowance, the extra allowance on the edge. If you have too much of that on there, what winds up happening is it fills it, makes it feel like a knot, or it changes the shape of it. And that's what would happen here if I left this ear, all this part extra there. But I do have to make sure I don't cut it so close that it winds up cutting my thread, because otherwise, of course, that thread's not going to be holding in place if you cut it. All right, real quick, right side this out, and then I'm going to tuck it in as well. Now, one of the things about my design is I had the intention of leaving the entire face and ear, the very front part of it, unstitched. So what's going to happen here is now that I've tucked this in, If I am correct and I sew this across, I'll be able to sew across the back side of the ear, which has this extra. And it should leave the face of it still untouched. And I might even be able to right side and stuff the ear afterwards. I'm not 100% sure. I won't know until I'm done, but I have a feeling that's going to be something that winds up happening. All right, so let's see. How do I want to set this up? I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to literally start sewing at the same spot and go ahead and take out some of my pins. The less pins I have, the less likely I am to stab myself. But it does help to have them there. So once again, I'm trying to see what would be the best route. If I did it from this side, it'd probably be a little bit easier on me. But I'm going to be honest. I want to be able to do it without having to flip it over halfway through. So we're going to test it that way. I'm going to do my very best to do it how I want to do it every time. And of course, there's a possibility that I will still have to do some extra weird steps to get it to look like I want. But we're never going to know unless we try, right? I've got this pulled enough so that hopefully there's enough space. I can't even tell if it caught the edge or not. It is thicker there, but I couldn't feel a difference in it. And what may have wound up happening is, for all I know, it just sewed this end as well. Which if it did, that's fine. That's what I originally thought I was going to have to do. But now, trying to do something different to get a more optimal effect, I'm kind of curious as to how it's going to work out. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever done any kind of plush making. If you are making a plush that you want perfected, it takes so many different tries. What'll happen is you make your pattern, you're kind of guessing, you've got these thoughts, you got your sketch or your reference material, and one of the curves doesn't match up. It doesn't bend the right way, whatever the case may be. And that basically what you'll have to do is make so many different prototypes. And I always suggest using like a piece of scrap fabric, maybe like a bed sheet or something like that. Catbee has used curtains to make like dog beds, and you could use like old curtains for the scrap paper or scrap material so that you're not using all your really good material right off the bat. But what'll happen is you'll make small adjustments over and over again. I'm not doing that. The way that I'm putting this together is a combination of experience and hope to see if it winds up doing what I want it to do. So that is a very big difference if you are making your own plushes at home. But that being said, you don't have to make prototypes. You don't have to test it out and fail and refail and refail and refail until it works. You can do things however you want, following patterns, making changes to patterns, all that stuff. Oops. Go ahead and put that back here. All right, so it looks like I've got it sewn across where I wanted it to. I even have the ability to put stuffing into the ear still. I have a little gap right here where it did not catch. And what I will do instead of hand sewing or machine sewing it is I'm going to hand sew that later. Just kind of fixing a little hole. Because there may be a couple holes. There may be another section right here that does the same thing. And it's hard to see. I can see it. I just don't know if you can see it on camera where that little section has come out. And here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. There is a clear hole right there. See? And that's one of the things you can do too. Take your chopstick, which I get my chopsticks with my fuzz. But you can use, I'm sure there's an actual tool for this, probably like a big plastic or wooden tool, and you run it around the edges to make sure where your seams are, and you can see if you miss anything. And a lot of times you can tell, but for example, when I sew these wedges, a lot of times one side will shift, and I can't always tell that if I've sewn it all the way across or not. And the smaller you get, for example, I always have to check when I sew my bellies on, because as small as these are, sometimes the fabric will twist up or catch on parts of it, and I have to double check to make sure that they came through and re-sew it before I right side it out. I have learned lots of ways to fix mistakes like that by hand stitching, which I will show you here in a minute. But the more that you can do with the sewing machine and the more you learn how to double check, the easier it is because way less aggravation. I like to cut off my extra strands just because they drive me crazy, but that's not something that you really have to do. And now I can right side this out, I think. Yep. See, there's my ear. And here is my other ear. I might make those bigger in the future, but we won't know how that's going to look until I finish putting stuffing the whole thing. I got these spikes down the back, and I already made legs. I had made these legs the last time. I just didn't put them on because I decided to turn it into a Mimikyu version of himself. So let's see how this kind of works out. Let me show you the tongue too. So the tongue, you can see right here, I've got that divot sewn into it. That's what I did at the very end. And you can tell that there's black thread. But even looking up close, because of how fuzzy it is, you can't really see that black thread. There's a couple spots maybe. I'm not 100% sure. But the relevance to that is that if you're making something like this, you could probably use a color other than the main one. So let's say you only have like 2 colors of thread. You don't have a red. You don't have to make it match every time, depending on the material that you're using. If you're using a cotton, yes, it'll show up a lot better. But if you're using a fuzzy material, it doesn't have to match perfectly. And then even if it doesn't match, in this circumstance, if it had been black lines that showed up completely right here, that would have been fine because this is a tongue. So it'll just look like a drawn line. There's a lot of leeway. There's a lot of things that you can do to play with and make it how you want it to look without having to worry too much about any major rules being broken. So let's see what happens here. We're going to stuff this up. If I'm lucky, this has got a little bit of an oval shape. The previous one had a round shape, and it was a short round shape. So it just did not land right at all. And in this case, I kind of did some adjustments based on the mistakes that I made that time. And I'm really hoping that it worked out a lot better. I don't want it to be big. I actually kind of wanted a small gengar to begin with. So it's not going to be as big as some of my other plushes have been. And part of that is because it's really hard to gauge the size without making versions of it. I've made a lot of very small plushes, but the size of these are meant to be like the size of a teddy bear. So what winds up happening is I'm just guessing on how big to make it, even though I know what kind of loss I'll have between like the sewing pattern. But I think that, yeah. So look at how different that turned out to be. Let me move some stuff out. We move this back so you can see. So last time when I made the head, that was my head. That was the whole body. This is just how it turned out. I had a hole in the bottom, so I was able to do this. But now I actually have the right shape. I really think this is a way better shape in comparison. And even if I were to make this a little bit longer from top to bottom, I think that that's really good there. I did run out of fluff in my bag, so I'm going to go get another bag of fluff. If you will bear with me for just a moment, talk amongst yourself. I'll be right back. Turns out I am on my last bag of fluff. And if you are curious, this is what I use. Polyfill. They make a lot of different types of things. I think they actually make different kinds of like weight or thickness or softness of fluff. But I also know they make pellets for weighted plushes. And I've used those before and they work great. The downside is that the pellets are way more expensive. They're by the pound. So I don't make a whole lot of weighted plushes because of that. Because not only do I have to worry about the cost of the pellets themselves, but it also makes the shipping way more expensive because by the pound. And I think that leaving these unfilled will make them look cute. I think that makes it look kind of cute how it kind of bends. If I were to fill it up, it would actually hold its shape perfectly. And for me, I kind of thought it'd be really cuter to have like ears that I know that Gengar is somewhere between horns and ears, or horns and hair, but I liked the idea of it looking more like an ear when I made mine. So I think that worked out pretty well. Now, I'm going to go ahead and attach the tongue. Now, I had talked earlier about the idea of having cut a hole here so that I could sew this in just like I did these. But I also expressed that what will happen is that would cause a pinch. I don't think I can get it to do. So what would happen is, see that right there? It would do that. It would do something like that if I were to have done that. Now, if you decide in the future that you definitely want something like that, you cut your wedge so that you can get this rounded shape. And then you would cut another piece right here. And you would just give it a little bit of excess so that whenever you do wind up sewing across, you would still have a flat layer. You see how this the belly stays kind of flat? And I could even like pull the fuzz out just using a needle, or in this case, I just grabbed the seam ripper because it was right there. And you can pull the fuzz right out of where your stitch is at. And you can even start hiding that seam really well that way. You can still see it, but it's nowhere near the same as it is down here. And you can still pull more out to get it nice and smooth looking anyways. So what I decided to do was I wanted to, let's see what direction I'm going to have this. I wanted to just sew this on. So it's going to be on the outside. Now, when I do this, I'm actually going to sew it, and then I'm going to right side this out and do a back stitch across it as well. Oh, sorry, what was the question? The big Pokemon? You just want the card? Is that what you're asking for? Okay. So we opened up a pack this morning or today, whenever we started, and the pack came from a box that featured Greninja, and he really wants his big card. Here you go. Take that to mommy. Go ahead and put that in your binder, okay?
In my room.
Yeah, in your room. Yeah, he was not willing to wait. I was really hoping that I could get him to forget about it so that I can hold on to it for his future self, but I really don't think he's going to. I think he's just determined to have it right now. All right, so let's see here. What I was saying is I'm going to hand stitch this on right here at the mouth. And then I am going to right side it out and do a back stitch to reinforce it. Because for example, my son is going to swing this by the tongue. So I got to stitch this on as strong as I can to secure it. And let me see, I just had my thread right here. Where did I put my thread? That's ridiculous. Did I drop it? I don't think so. All right. This is silly. Oh, here it is. It was just right in front of me. All right. So I think what's going to be best for me is if I go ahead and close this up. I got the camera right in my face. I don't know if that means I'm talking louder or not, but go ahead and put this someplace where I can actually see what I'm doing. This is a ladder stitch. Now, the way that I am doing this is a little extra. What I actually do to start this, oops, I forgot to tie a knot. Real quick knot. What I do, my needle is actually kind of thick. And because it's so thick, it tends to make a hole big enough in the fabric for my knot to come right through. So I try to get my needle as close to the stitching as I can, the machine stitching, because that'll help hold it into place. But after I pull it out, I'll go right back in. As I pull this out, I will stop short. And what I will do is actually feed my needle between the two threads. All that is doing is keeping it from pulling all the way out and securing it. It's kind of a little knot. It's just enough to get started. And once I actually get everything stitched together, I don't have to worry about it anyways. Now, for a ladder stitch, I came out right here. I will go directly across to the other piece, do a shallow stitch again, keeping it close to the edge, and pull tight. Once again, go directly across, shallow. I tend to put my finger right in the middle because what I want to do is make sure that the two pieces actually go inwards when I pull it tight so that my stitch stays hidden. Apparently I've been on for 45 minutes. I got to do my timer. Solve a puzzle real quick. There we go. Now, this is the type of stitch that I would use when I am also attaching two pieces together. Say, when I attach this tongue to the face. It's slightly different because you're not doing two ends, but it is roughly the same. And here's the thing as well. I am self-taught. This is all stuff that I learned on my own, that I saw videos for, pieces of videos for, little bits of reading. I've never really researched beyond casual searches on whether or not this is the best way to close a stitch or the best way to attach things. So if someone's watching me right now and you're like, hey, you're an idiot, why aren't you using this stitch? It's because I am an idiot and I don't know, and I don't even know what I don't know. So please tell me if you see anything that I am doing wrong. I am happy to learn. I've learned all kinds of different things from people watching, and I've made all kinds of different changes because I figure if I'm going to be trying my best to help people, I better be at least open to hearing suggestions too. And see, what I'm doing here is I'm actually using the chopstick to push the corner in so that I'm hiding the edges and the previous stitches and everything else all at once. Get this nice and tight in here. Hey, Teenita, I didn't see that you were in here. I just saw that you liked it. Thank you so much. Teenita is another one of the people that have been watching me for a little while. They've actually got an order in that I will be working on hopefully soon, but I am catching up on my queue. And that is its own process. I've got Mondays for Pokemon. I got Wednesdays for Weird. And then every day for making orders. Plus, I am still trying to figure out what I'm going to do for my giveaway. This is the mouse that I've built so far for my giveaway. I'm trying to decide, should I make it into something like a witch or wizard? Or should I add accessories because I've got these magnets now? And I could put the magnets inside the head so that he wears a hat, which just looks funny when I do it this way. But basically, it's showing that I can actually, it's a pretty strong magnet. And I can basically give it exchangeable hats. Looks like Cat Bee just said hat accessories. That's going to be our first one. What's being made? This is try two of this guy. I am making a retry for this, and it looks like Tinata thinks the accessories are a good idea too. So what I'm going to do is express my worry about that. The accessories are just going to be held on by magnets. So if somebody, for example, see how these got the loop on their back so that you can wear them as a key ring? Here, I've got this. I'll show you. You can attach a key ring to the back of them. And then they all have the loop on their belly. If somebody's wearing this around, they have it on their backpack, that magnet's not going to stay on from jostling. Should I just be like, that's on you? Or should I just be like, I can't do it because I'm afraid that you might lose it and blame me? I really think that's on you is the way to do it. But I want to get someone else's opinion as well. And I think basically most people will understand, oh, that's just a magnet. I have to take that off whenever I'm walking around with it. But I know how things can go and switch and change, and people can get upset about all kinds of different things. So I figured I'd ask opinions on it. How did I have that set? Did I draw? Yes, sir? You see?
I see her arms.
Yeah, some arms.
I see his arms.
Yeah, the ninja arms. And he's got a Greninja card now.
You help me.
Yeah, I can't help you right now, but maybe Mommy can.
Mommy.
Yeah. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hand stitch the same way I was expressing using the ladder stitch. I believe it's called a ladder stitch. I'm going to have to right side this out afterwards so that I can reinforce it. Yes, I think add a disclaimer just in case. You know what? That makes sense. I just add a little piece of paper that says, hey, this is what's going on. Maybe I'll put that in the video as well, so that people can say, yeah, I definitely want to be part of that giveaway. I'm going to enroll in it, and then they'll know because I said something early on. I think that might just be the better way to do it because it'll be a lot of fun to make accessories. I haven't had a chance to do that. Everything has been permanently attached. So adding removable and exchangeable accessories has been something that people have been asking for a while. And it'll be a good way to test it. And since they're not paying for it, since it's a giveaway, it kind of gives me a little bit more leeway for it, a little bit chance to test. So that's going to be the plan. I'm going to do that teal and purple glittery mouse, and I'm going to do a small number of different accessory hats at least, and maybe stuff for it to hold. I'll put a collar on him that looks like something that a witch, a wizard, a clown, a princess, any of those could wear. So it's kind of universal. And then just add the additional accessories. And I think that that'll make it a lot of fun. So keep an eye out for that. Anybody who's watching, anybody who's been following for a while, particularly, please make sure that you keep an eye out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post like before when I did my giveaway, that anybody who likes, comments, shares, what I will do is I'll roll a 6-sided dice. No, I think what I did was that's what I'll do. I'll roll a 20-sided die to determine how many 6-sided die I will roll. I will roll that number of 6-sided die, add that together, and then I will use that number to scroll through the comments and see who wins. And I will roll back to the top if I make it all the way to the bottom before I reach that number. That's as close to getting random as I could be without literally entering in every name into a random name picker that I'm aware of. So maybe if somebody knows of a better method, please feel free to let me know. But I felt like that was a pretty good solid method that time, because there's always a chance that I can get one. I will roll a 1 on the 20-sided, and then I'll roll a 1 on the 6-sided, and it gives everybody a chance that is pretty equal balance. And the tongue is already sewn on. I think that looks good. When I add the eyes on here, I think this is going to be a pretty good shape and size. And go ahead and lose my end somewhere inside. Now I've got to unstuff. One of the things that's going to happen, though, when I unstuff it is all the stitches that I just put in around the tongue, they're going to hold the fluff in place. That would be so cool. Okay, so thank you, Cappy. And keep an eye out, because, again, I will be asking questions and posting about it. And Tinata, what I will do is I will post a video. I will label it as giveaway. I will probably post a couple videos saying, hey, on this day, I'm going to be doing this. Later today, I'm going to be doing this. But there will be one post that it says specifically, like, comment, and share this post. And if you're on my friends list, and you will be entered in, because I'll just pick randomly from the comments. So you'll have to keep an eye out. Last time I did it, I posted like 4 times before I got anybody to even respond to it. I was so aggravated because I didn't really know how to get people to respond and how to get people to notice. And that was the first time I had reached 1,000 people. So I had no way of gauging what to expect. All right, now I've got this right-sided out. If you look, you can see where the stitches are. It is a little bit hard to spot. But here, I'm going to do a quick back stitch along that whole thing from one end to the other. What that means is I'm going to stab in through it all. Oops, yep, I definitely have to get it tied in place. You do that same thing where I tie it off real quick. Now I'm just going to do a simple back stitch all the way across to reinforce it. The back stitch seems to be a pretty solid stitch. And it's been the stitch that I use whenever I have to hand stitch for the original sewing. And as long as I pull it tight, that should stay hidden amongst the fur as well. I might even go back another round. And the reason is because this is basically going to be one of the handles that my son uses. He's going to grab it by the tongue. He's going to swing it by the tongue. And because I know that, I want to make sure that it's strong enough to withstand it. And it'll be the same thing that I do if somebody else were to order one of these, so that I can do my very best to make sure that it is sturdy enough for somebody else's household. It is a little bit harder to figure out when you're doing it from the backside like this, because what could happen is these stitches could show up in the front. I'm just trying to keep it really close to where I had done the outer stitch and hope that it works like I intend. Man, I am messing up my finger. I got to start wearing my thimble. And since I'm doing a lot of sewing lately, it's actually kind of a little bit worse than usual, because I'm trying to get caught up on all the orders, trying to make sure I have time to do extra stuff. I have a craft show in town that I'm going to be doing. So there's a whole lot of things that I'm trying to do all at one time, because the only chance I have at being successful is based on how well I do and how much I do and how right I do it. I am trying to find some other ways to kind of balance out the amount of work that I have to do, but even those are kind of hard to figure out. Okay, now let's see. I think that should be good. I'm going to go ahead and right side this out. I'm going to go ahead and put the eyeballs in. And again, I'm going to use the big eyes. I know my son likes the big eyes on his plushes, but I also think that this plush would serve best from it. It looks like I managed to hide those stitches pretty well. I still got a lot of fuzz and everything here, but that's just something that's going to happen until it's all done. So now, let's go ahead and figure out where I want these eyes to be. If I have this as a smirk, you know what? I might be better off just refilling it. I don't have to stuff it perfectly this time. But if I refill them, then I could just jab my awe into his face instead of having to kind of guesstimate what it's going to look like. Our order's pretty backed up. I saw your post and there was a ton of mice being made. Right now, all of a sudden, I had a whole bunch of orders. So I've got like a page and a half of orders right now, but I am constantly running through them. I just finished off 5 orders over the weekend. And I don't know how much of that is, but I think that's about a third of one of my pages. And some of those orders were like several mice. So there's a lot more mice on some orders than there are on others. Hopefully that's not discouraging or upsetting Tina. Tina actually has an order in as well. And my hope is that they don't feel like I am falling behind and or forgetting them or becoming flaky. I have done that in the past, so I am a little bit paranoid about that. But I promise I am doing my very best to make sure I stay as caught up as I can and stay active as much as I can as well. And that's not even counting the idea of all the extra stuff that I have to get ahead of. And the fact that it's summer. My 4-year-old son is home for summer. So I appreciate that. I appreciate both of you being patient with me. I appreciate everyone who's been patient with me. So far, I've been very blessed with the people that have been interested at being very understanding. I've got a few big projects that I'm working on as well for it. But I'm doing my best, and I will be always working hard to keep going. All right, I think that oh man, that's kind of hard to tell. I'm really going to have to put more fluff in here. So every now and then I'll get like an easier project, and every now and then I'll mess it up. So like, for example, that mouse that I made that was supposed to be a bunny. So of course I had to make the bunny. That kind of thing will happen every now and then, and there's just no way for me to fix that. No way for me to avoid it. I made a post the other day about today, in fact, about how just doing one simple project, sewing something, so many things can go wrong sometimes. And I think right about here, that should be good. Use my awl to get this stabbed through. Just enough so I can use that as a reference again. I do know that I have to kind of stretch it out just a little bit because these eyes are a little bit big. But I have to be very careful not to accidentally cut too deep into my material. So now, let's see if I can get this in. These eyes are so big that it's really kind of hard to tell. The awe is supposed to help stretch the material without tearing it, because tearing it will weaken it. Okay, we got one in. Lived a good life. I said what I said and love the eyes. Let's see. You're one person that's a lot, plus you take care of your family. If they don't understand, they haven't lived a good life. I really appreciate that, Cat B. I do my best. I feel like I'm falling behind on everything, and I feel so with the summer being on, and he's only 4, so he's about to go into kindergarten. I'm worried that he's not learning enough. So we started reading at night. We started doing all these other things to try and kind of adjust for it. And I never know what's going to be quite enough and what's going to have him keep up, especially since he didn't talk as much when he was younger. He was slow to talk. So when I do all these things, it's nice that he loves them, he plays with them, and then it has the added benefit of being my job. Yeah, I think the eyes will work just fine. But then the fact that it is my job, I get paranoid about it and worried. So it's relieving. It's assuring to hear your positive reinforcement. So I really appreciate that. All right, let's see here. Got to get this right side out. Let me get my washers real quick. I'm not 100% sure these are called washers. They just look like it to me. And I'm pretty sure that would be a close enough term for them. So again, these are called safety eyes. Let me show you roughly how this works. They come in different sizes. This is just the biggest one that I have. The inside has got these ridges. And what happens is you slide the washer on and the ridges hold it in place. So my son is actually very excited about school, and then he forgets about school, and then he doesn't want to go to school, and then he just wants to watch TV, then he just wants to swim, then he remembers his friends. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Called backing, but I like saying washers too. Yeah, so backing, washer, as long as we kind of know roughly what we're talking about here. See, that's how it goes on in place. Now, with smaller ones, this part is a really hard, sharp point a lot of times. Let me show you roughly what I mean. It looks like that. I will actually cut this off with a pair of wire cutters because I don't like the idea of there being a sharp point on the inside of the plushes that I make. I have seen some people use a lighter to melt it down or a hot spoon. And what that would essentially do is melt this black part around the washer, the backing, and it would be way more secure, but I don't like to do that. I order mine online. I don't have a specific store that I order from, but I can order them in bulk. So I get like a whole bunch at a time and I get different sizes. But a lot of craft stores have these as well. And they are called safety eyes. And it's exactly how it sounds. Safety as in to stay safe. So you probably can find them at a local craft store, maybe even Walmart. I know that Walmart and Hobby Lobby and a few other stores are taboo for creators and stuff like that. But I also know full well that not everybody has access to as much options. Take what you can get and don't feel guilty about it. Do what you've got to do. Just take care of yourself sometimes. That's what I do. Mine come from Hobby Lobby. I don't have another store in town that sells the extra, but I order online as often as I can because I know how hard it is to deal with a lot of those different things. All right, let's get this fluff back up, and we're going to see what it looks like when I put the legs on. And I'll still have a tooth to sew on right about here. I'm going to have arms to sew on. My legs are already done, so that's good. And another thing, Tina, if it matters, I've actually been seeing on TikTok a lot of people make their own safety eyes. I don't know if they start with an already made safety eye and they just paint it or use resin to go over it, but I've seen a lot of different ones being made. I considered the idea for a while of making them out of resin or something like that. You can basically make a silicone mold and kind of use that to make more. I just haven't sat down to try and figure that out because it would be a lot of fun to be able to make my own different colored eyes, special eyes for different things, different sizes. You could probably even use nails if you did the right type of mold. You can just put the nail inside and then use a washer to hold it in place, like an actual washer. But it might be worth kind of looking into depending on how into this kind of projects that you get. Because then you could just start adding eyes to everything. My Cthulhu has like 6 eyes. All right, so all I'm really doing is kind of adjusting where the fluff is. It's not really going to break up the fluff very much. It just kind of shifts it a little bit. And usually that's plenty to kind of get a good shape. There we go. I think as far as shapes go, that worked out pretty well. And then the legs. And I'll put the arms just kind of dangling in the middle or maybe off to the side. So I can get the arms up really high. I'll probably play around with that a little bit once I get to that point. Let me go ahead and close these up. I never actually finished the legs because I wasn't sure when I was going to start working on it or if I was going to use the same design or redesign it. But since I wound up using the same design, I'm just going to go ahead and close these up, use the same legs. Again, I'm doing the whole same process I did when I closed up the... What did I close up? Oh, the tongue. I could not remember for a minute what it was that I had actually finished off. So this is a real simple stitch. Once again, it's just you come out of one end, one side, go directly across where you came out, and do another shallow stitch, and you just keep repeating. I believe it is called a ladder stitch, and it's called that because basically you're making rungs when you go back and forth. And again, I can't say that's 100% exactly the correct terminology, reasons, all that stuff. This is just what I understand to be the case, and I am definitely open to being corrected. So if you see something... Oh yeah, the UV resin thing. Now the downside of using UV resin is that the resins, they have a lot of fumes. They have a lot of toxic attributes to them. And that's part of the reason why I never started to do it. But I do know that it's safe enough that people do it all the time. I just don't know how long it takes for the side effects to become a problem. So if you do decide to use resin, do me a favor and just kind of do some extra research into it. Same thing would happen with melting plastics, but I know that there's stuff like injection molding that people have been doing for a long time, which they use metal and then they also use plastic for injection molding. So you might find a way to do injection molding that does the same thing to create your own safety eyes. Because I know injection molding, you can get some pretty detailed figures. I had some friends that used to do the Warhammer 40K, and they would make their figures through injection molding so that they can have an army as opposed to having to buy each individual one at whatever the cost was. And while I am all for supporting games and playing games the right way, I am also all for artists doing their own thing and figuring out the right way to do it. Not just artists, people in general. So when I made these, I've got a flat side here, and then I've got a rounded side because I added that little wedge. And if you look, you can see the difference. It's not huge because it's not a big amount of space and the wedge only goes to the ear, but you can see the difference between a flat piece and a shaped wedge. Also not biodegradable, so a lot of it ends up waste. Even if you're doing perfect measurements, because I've done some UV stuff, some resin stuff, there's a lot of waste in it. Even if it's not a massive amount, it's almost impossible to not have waste. I imagine that people get better and better at it, or they use the waste for other projects once they kind of get used to it. But when you are first starting, you're not going to have all those same options. So you're going to have to do your best to do what you can. But I do think that there are some options, some ways to do it that won't include danger and won't include as much waste. I just haven't looked into it yet. Now, what I am doing now is I'm just going to attach or sew close this leg, which I should have gone ahead and made an extra thread through for, because I think I'm going to try and attach at least one of the legs on before we go today. But at the very least, I'm going to close them both so that I can stand it up next to them, and we will see what it looks like. I have a feeling this is going to look pretty decent. Maybe it's just because I'm comparing it to my previous failure, and anything looks better than failure, which is a funny way of looking at things, but it also lowers the bar. Lowering the bar to be able to be happy with something is definitely a talent. Get a little bit extra stuff in here before I close this. It'll help it keep its shape a little bit better. There we go. Let's see, So every now and then the AI is popping up with suggestions on what I should be saying, but I don't know if I should be updating my live. Should I be changing the name of it every so often? Because it just keeps popping off with ideas or suggestions. And while I'm not a fan of AI in any way, shape, or form, I assume that it's doing that for some reason. And I also know that TikTok is notorious for pushing its own agendas. So maybe if I listen to it and hit the button to update, it might help me out a little bit more. It's really hard to tell. I don't think it would hurt anything. I just haven't hit the button to find out. I haven't done the research to know what it's going to do. So if anybody does lives regularly, feel free to educate me on things. Somebody sent me an invitation to a creators group, and it really looked like it was all about helping the creators get more audience, be seen, kind of earn a little bit more money when they're doing their lives. But the person I was talking to kind of vanished in the middle of my questions, and I know I was asking a lot of questions. So if anybody is any good at the creator programs, or you know enough about it or where to look, I don't really like Googling that one because I've tried it before and it's not very clear answers. So if anybody knows something that can help me out, I am more than happy. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, Catby. I know just enough to know that I don't know enough. So I'm trying to find someone who might be able to help me, but at the same time, hey, he talks a lot. He asks a lot of questions. I don't want to deal with that. Happens to me a lot. Okay, one last thread through here, just so I can hide my end. And I think I am going to go ahead and cut another piece because, well, that might be enough. I know enough to get by. That's kind of where I feel about a lot of it. I've learned a lot of different things from what has happened while I've been live. I have had a few challenges pop up that I have completed. I do my very best to learn as fast as I can, but because I don't anticipate to make money off my lives, I haven't continuously researched what I could do to make money. It's just kind of a way of interacting and getting myself out there, and whatever comes with it, comes with it. And I'm okay with that. I am genuinely curious. Couldn't hurt to know what'll help me more, right? Okay, so let's see. I think what I'm going to do is, because I've got this opening on this side, I'm just going to go ahead and sew on that side leg, the opposite side. And then I will stand that one up next to it so we can see roughly what we're looking at. I think if I had a little bit more body below the head, below the mouth, like maybe if I put the mouth up here instead, that would look a little bit better. But I think this will do fine. I think it should hold itself up too. If I'm really lucky, that'll be helpful. For the Eevee, I had to sew all the way around and kind of get the legs to kind of shape the body so it cradled the body a little bit more. So I'm not sure. I may wind up having to do the same thing with this. And if I do, I'll just do that later. Essentially what I would do is I'm going to sew around here, around the thigh, And if I need to, I can just add more stitches to bring it around the foot so that that curves to the body and conforms and helps it hold in place. Do I know if I need that? No, but I won't know until I'm done. So I do think I want that down just a little bit more. So I'm going to have to adjust the way I stitch here. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and tie this off so that I don't accidentally tighten it too much and cause it to bind up. That should be enough to keep it from trying to go up some more. A lot of times whenever I know what I'm doing with the plush, I will not add the legs on until I've closed it off. And that's just because I know full well that that makes a difference on how it sets when it is actually finished. In this case, I'm not even sure how he's going to sit down. So there's a lot of kind of guesswork still happening. And another good thing is if I just quickly stitch it on like what I'm doing right now, I have the benefit of being able to add more stitches later. Even if I have to cut this off to restart, that's totally okay. When you kind of put your arms on, you might find sometimes that it just didn't land where you want it to. Maybe it doesn't look right. Maybe it's off balance. Maybe you've got one in one spot and you moved a lot more than you realized for the second one. It is really easy to undo the stitch that I'm using by just cutting one of them and just pulling it right out. So it keeps you from having to feel like it's a one and done. Of course, I also know the feeling of getting it finished and being like, no, I'm not fixing that. That's just going to have to be how it is. So that's totally a legitimate way to deal with that too. Okay. Since that went on so quick, I might wind up doing the other one as well. It's kind of hard to tell. The leg is sitting like that. It's kind of like he's sitting. It's kind of curved in. But what I will do is I will actually sew higher up on the thigh to get that in a different place. And I think in comparison, I will actually start the stitch on the body here for this one, since I know roughly where I want it to be, and it's a little harder to find when I start at the leg. Once again, just sliding that between the two stitches, the two threads, just enough to get it to hold in place. And also, I had mentioned that I've got the wedge here to give one side shape and the other side is flat. I'm putting the flat side against the body so that the thigh actually sticks out to the side. Right about there. Oh, wow, I got that pretty low. So I guess I'm going to have to start low on him, on the thigh, I mean. That seems pretty darn close. Yeah, it seems close. Again, if it turns out to be off, I just unstitch it. Yank it right off. Try again. And by doing a kind of a wide and quick stitch like what I'm doing here, I also have the benefit of I could just start another thread and just really tighten it up. Go further in, change the shape as I stitch, but it'll be in place and it'll be secured in a way that I don't have to worry about shifting around. So I can actually see how it looks once it's all sewn together. And that'll be kind of helpful when it comes to the actual final stitching of it. I do this sometimes depending on what kind of project I'm working on. What is that? Oh, that's right. I had done a basting stitch on this one. So there's the white thread. That's funny. I forgot that I had done that to show people how to do it. And that I used the white thread so you can see what I was actually talking about as I did it. Normally that doesn't show up, but sometimes clearly there's just enough space in the stitch or the position where the basting stitch was that you can actually see what happened. Pull just a little bit tight. Run this back through again. This should be enough for me to see without the arms what it'll look like. And I will do the final touches maybe tomorrow, hopefully by next Monday. Which reminds me, I also need to know what Pokemon I'm doing next Monday. Anybody have any suggestions? This is the last of the ones I've drawn up, and I don't really want to do an evolution yet. I've already done one, and I just did the Eevee last Monday. So if anybody's got any suggestions or any thoughts or requests, you can send me messages. You can place an order, whatever you want to do. But I am open to hearing. Let them cook. All right, there we go. I think that this turned out way better than my first one. Let me go ahead and move my camera around here. So this looks way closer to what I had drawn up. Look at that. That's pretty darn close to what I was aiming for. And though I love my Mimikyu, I am very happy to have an actual Gengar now. Such a big difference, right? That was intended to be the whole thing. This was supposed to be that. Such a big difference in the way it turned out the first time I made one of these. Yes, thank you, Cat B. I actually do like this one too. It makes me smile. I think that the Mimikyu version was super cute. It turned out it's become one of my favorites. But now that I have the extra one, and what I'll do is I'll probably put the arms way to the side. And I can always make some more adjustments. So, for example, if someone's likes this, I can make it wider. I can move the mouth up more. I got a lot of more things that I can do. Yes, it looks like he's holding the phone. It looks like they're cuddling together and holding the phone between them. It's like a group picture. Something I want to do very soon is I want to turn my little drawings into digital stickers and then put those directly on top of Pokemon cards so I can basically make my own goofy Pokemon cards. And he's licking the phone. All right, folks. I really appreciate you coming by. Remember to keep an eye out. I'm going to be setting up my giveaway. Again, I think it's going to be set up as I'm going to do the accessories using the magnets to hold it in place. I will put the disclaimer on there. I'm going to be using this turquoise and purple fellow because I think these colors look fantastic together. And I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you guys so very much for coming by. Thank you, Cat B. Thank you, Tinita. John, if you're still here. Everybody else who stopped by, feel free to message me, join, follow, make requests, anything you like. I'm here to do the best I can to help out. You have a good night and happy holiday, everybody. Happy Memorial Day.